Welcome to another lovely episode of Getting Defensive with Andrew Callett and Jerry Bell.
Hello, Jerry. How are you today?
I'm so good it hurts. How are you?
You're back at your normal, non-Southern Command in an undisclosed location.
Well, I'm wintering in the north, which is like totally backwards.
Does seem ill-advised.
What can I say?
But anyway.
What can I say? So we have a guest today. Well, why don't you introduce our guest?
Well, why don't you give our disclaimer and then I'll introduce our guest.
Well, fine. For those of us who have jobs, the thoughts and opinions we express on the show are ours and do not represent those of our employer.
Past, present, or future.
Yes.
Someday we'll get this down, maybe by episode 100. Anyway, today we are joined by an old friend of mine. I'm thrilled to have with us someone I consider a true thought leader in the cybersecurity industry, Dave Shackelford, also known as Shack. Dave is the founder and principal consultant of Voodoo Security, a respected firm specializing in cybersecurity strategy, cloud security, pen testing, all sorts of fun stuff like that. He's also a senior SANS instructor where he's been for, something like 45 years. I think he's been teaching and mentoring at SANS. Professionals around the globe, especially in cloud security, virtualization, all sorts of cool stuff. So in all seriousness, Dave's been in the industry over 2 decades, used to do a lot of conference speaking. Now he's sworn it off after that one incident we're not allowed to talk about. But he's a well-known person in the industry, no BS kind of guy. He's also a physical fitness beast who I'm incredibly jealous of on a regular basis, a world traveler. I see him all the time, he and his wife, like, we're in Uzbekistan, and now we're in London, and now we're in Guatemala. And I'm like, geez, it's Tuesday, calm down. So I live vicariously through his post. But with all that said, welcome, Dave, and what did I miss in your intro?
So, have not been to Uzbekistan. Just going to let you know, like that. So that one's maybe on the list a little further down. But no, everything else, yeah. I mean, so look, yes, it's funny that I just had to laugh at the SANS thing because I was talking to somebody else recently. I started with SANS, and I'll be happy to regale everyone with the extraordinarily, viscerally exciting tale of how I became a SANS person. But I have been a SANS instructor for almost 20 years and have been a course author and a lot of other things since about 2001. That alone just it's an interesting time benchmark, right? To just go, wow,
yeah,
been hanging around for a minute, I've sort of seen a couple things. But
yeah,
everything else, right up there. I've been here for a long time. Glad to still be here. I'm actually having more fun than ever in the worst possible way because our industry is essentially a dumpster fire. But it's a dumpster fire that I'm enjoying. I hope everyone else is enjoying it too.
Well, it pays the bills, right?
Thanks for having me. I'm here to talk about the bills and the paying of the bills and what's going on, frankly, what's going on to facilitate that.
Well, I mean, you say you're having fun. A lot of people are getting burnt out and beat down and grumpy. What makes it so fun? What are you doing that's so fun right now?
So look, great question. And I've had this conversation with a bunch of other people over the years. And I respect the burnout. I really do, because I do think it's emotionally draining, and particularly for folks that are fighting the good fight in the trenches within an organization that doesn't respect what cybersecurity represents and elevates it to the level that it needs to be. I think that's hard because, you go to work every day and you feel like you're just battling, you're paddling uphill, like to upstream, and it's tough. But here's the thing. You're doing good stuff. Really, for the world. You're fighting a good fight for the world, and you have a community of people, obviously us, that knows this, and we've all, I think, kind of rallied around one another a bit more. I mean, I used to feel like our industry was so just deliberately snarky, and we sort of punched it down a lot in this industry.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that way anymore. I actually feel like we're sort of trying to bring each other up a little bit because it's a hard deal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that it's going to make your day-to-day job life any better, but I feel like, look, we've seen the enemy and it is us, right? I mean, at the same, because it's your job to try to explain to people why this is so important. And that is hugely challenging. It just is. How many conversations, look, let me put it out there. How many conversations have you guys had with family members or people that aren't tech people that sort of hear the news or they hear a buzzword and they ask you about it or whatever, and you're trying to explain, like why this is such a big deal and why fundamentally, I mean, I'm not going to exaggerate here. I think cybersecurity is quite literally a part of like the future of technology. And you try to explain that to somebody that works in finance or some, and it's so challenging. And I think we all get that now. I guess that's, coming around to the point. We all now understand the problem. It's on the table in front of us. So yeah, I don't get burnout because I look at it and go, look, it's kind of a mission. It's an ongoing mission. And the attackers are crazier. The attacks are crazier. We have a lot more interest. And there's a lot more smart people that are getting invested in this stuff. Like there's good things happening. But as I always say, look, I'm a reluctant optimist in this space. I mean, I can't help myself.
Yeah, that's fair. I to your point, trying to explain a lot of what we do to a lot of people, I think to them, they just look at us like witchcraft. It's magic. It's craziness. I don't understand it.
Yes.
I'm glad you're doing it.
You hackery people.
Right.
And I'm like, that's not even that's real.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Any of you
that's
deal
great.
with
I mean,
like mapping regulations into a spreadsheet?
Oh, that's good times.
Yeah, let's talk about that and how fun it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my go-to over Thanksgiving is let's talk about mapping SOC 2 to MITRE with a little bit of, sorry, I'm putting
it causes some PTSD, my friend. Like this is.
Will you even emerge from Thanksgiving? That's the question. Yeah, because that's painful times right there. Yeah,
it is. It's true. But no. So Dave and I have known each other forever, but I don't think you ever met Jerry, or if you have, it's maybe been briefly. But
in name, in name, and we were just commenting on that prior to this starting off. But look, so we're Atlanta people, the crew here, right? Atlanta is notorious for any of you that are hanging out outside the Atlanta area. Atlanta is notorious for a lot of people knowing each other in name. But if you know anything about Atlanta, the traffic's atrocious. Nobody wants to go anywhere before or after work or during work or anything at all related to the business day. And so it's very common for people to know each other in name and go, oh my gosh, I know who you are, but we've never met. That's totally okay.
It's true.
And
you know what?
You'd
be disappointed if you did. Sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
Through some work of geography, any 2 points in the Atlanta area are 2 hours away from each other.
Sure.
I don't know how that works, but
except for a brief moment at 2 a.m. on a Sunday. That's it. Otherwise,
and then it's only an hour and a half.
I have to fly. So I live just north of the city. I have to fly to Boston on Wednesday for work. And my wife's going with me. And no joke, we were just talking about this prior to me jumping on the show. We're leaving at like 4 a.m. to get to the airport. Because that's the only time that you can reliably go, okay, yeah, there's not going to be a ton of traffic. We'll get there. Like, we'll make it. That's not fun. I don't love.
No, I now leave 3 hours before my flight to make sure I can get to the airport and get through security and not stress about it.
It's not the best. But look, I love Atlanta. I love being here, but the logistics of Atlanta don't lend themselves to casual meetups for security professionals. They just don't.
No.
Because everybody's desperate to get the heck out of Dodge whenever they're done with work or what have you. It's been extraordinarily difficult over decades, in fact. So I founded the Cloud Security Alliance chapter here in Atlanta years and years and years ago with some other folks that I'm sure the both of you would know, and maybe some other listeners would know as well. I mean, it was not a, Dave effort. It was a group effort. And we found that nobody could ever get together. It was just like, oh yeah, we're going to have this charter in name on paper and it'll be great. But getting everybody together, forget it. Like nobody hangs out in Atlanta. Come on.
Yeah. It's sad. I mean, we used to on the regular, like you, me, and Hamlin would used to get together, but then we all got busier and Hamlin passed away. And then, the more busy I got at work, the more after work I was like, I just want to decompress. I just want to like chill and not fight traffic.
Yeah.
So,
so look, the reality is I turned 50 this year. This was a fun year.
Wow.
50. Yeah, right on. Feel great, by the way, as 50, like 50 is pretty cool. But at 25, I was so eager to go to everything I could possibly go to. And I would sacrifice many, many things in order to do so. And I think that's normal. And I think it's frankly kind of expected because you're just trying to absorb.
Yep.
You're trying to meet new people. You're trying to do things that gradually diminishes. Right. So I don't know if any of you have seen, there's a comedian named Nate Bargatze. Fantastic, really funny guy. He did a great stint on Saturday Night Live not too long ago. But he has this great skit that he talks about people going out in their 20s and 30s and 40s. And in the 20s, he's like, so if somebody calls you up, one of your friends calls you up and you're like, we're going out. And your 20s, you're like, I'll sell my apartment, dude. I'll go. I'm going. Like, doesn't matter. You're like, okay, where are we going? Is it loud? I'm driving separate. And then the 40s, you're like, there's no way I'm going. I'm in Sultan's Shaft. And I think that's a natural progression for anything. But at the same, it's like cybersecurity. How many conferences do we have? How many talks are there? You can't get to them all. You pick and choose your battles a bit more as you sort of age into the industry. I can't get all this stuff, man. Neither can either one of you. You do the best you can. You find the ones you can get to.
You tell yourself you'll watch the videos later. You never do.
It depends. Some of them I do, but to be fair, no. To be fair, it's totally true. Yeah, you don't go and sit because you don't have time. You got other stuff going on.
And frankly, man, as I got older or more deeper into the industry, I think I mostly went for LobbyCon anyway. And which is sad because people do put a ton of work into these talks. They give good talks. I try to give good talks, but man, it's just, I don't know. It just turns into something different, I think, as you get older. And I think that's okay. I think, like you said, when you're younger, you are just paying your dues. You're absorbing everything. It's like I get hit up all the time too from all these vendors about, hey, we're doing this happy hour. We're doing this. We're doing that. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, guys. It's not that I don't like you. I just like not working too sometimes. But
I mean, look, I used to make fun mercilessly, if I'm being, honest here, about just the number of conferences we have in this industry. It felt ludicrous. It felt crazy. It felt silly, in fact. Like, there's several a day all over the world. How much do we really have to talk about? And, I won't go back to that argument. I've sort of softened on that stance because I'm like, look, if there's a need there and it's an opportunity, especially for like a local community, who am I to get in the way of it? I want people to go and enjoy hanging out and meeting other professionals and hopefully getting some good content. But I can't get to all that stuff. I gotta be a bit more selective. And I think that just does naturally happen. I mean, and the other thing too, so I'm going to be honest here too. Look, I'm curious to hear both of your opinions on this one. The big ones are not as exciting to me anymore. I don't get super excited about Black Hat. I don't get super excited about RSA. I used to go talk at those. And so I was like, okay, if I'm talking, then that's like, if I'm speaking, that's different. Those aren't the really most interesting ones to me anymore. I mean, to some degree, I think there's some benefit to going if you meet people. Hallway Con, as Andy said, meet people, hang out. There's so many people there. It's kind of cool. But am I fired up about going to Vegas in the middle of the hottest part of the year with everybody wearing black clothing to hang out and talk about security? Absolutely not. You know what? I think I can give that one up. Just being honest,
When
I think I
deodorant-
could probably pass.
Deodorant might be a little optional. Showering might be a little optional.
On-funk is real, my man.
Yeah.
You know,
I
I
I
know.
will. There was a time, and this is me just being old. I remember going to DEF CON back in Alexis Park, which just dates me tremendously.
Me too.
It was a couple hundred people who were hardcore weirdos in the industry, right?
Uh-huh.
And I'm not saying it's not trying to say it's too cool for school. No, it was just a completely different vibe. And I didn't even fit in well there. I was never a hacker. I've never considered myself a hacker. But it was a really cool environment to be around, and I learned a lot, and I met a lot of really cool people and some folks we know who are deeply into running those cons at the time, and it was a really neat experience. But as I got older, man, it just got so busy, logistically challenging. And frankly, now, anytime a con's coming out like RSA or anything big, my LinkedIn and email just gets flooded with every sales rep on the planet saying, hey, you want to meet with our CEO and our executives at blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, this is not why I go. And, so we started going to smaller cons, like when DerbyCon was a thing, that was one we enjoyed, and ShmooCon and such. But the other thing I'll say, and I didn't know we were going to riff too much on cons, but it's a great conversation. I think different people at different portions of their career get different things out of cons, and that's all great. And I think different cons have different focuses, but to say that one security con represents all facets of the information security professional and amateur community is insane. We all have such different focuses and such different places we're coming from. And somebody who's like a 22-year-old script kiddie who's just getting started in pen testing has a very different view and vibe and need than a 30-year veteran CISO who's trying to deal with commercial regulations in the EU. It's just so different.
Yep,
and
totally
I think
agree.
we don't do ourselves a service of like trying to say this is an information security conference. No, there's so many different subgenres or communities in this, and they're not all one better or different. They're just different. And I think that is something maybe we need to accept at some point, that these are just different conferences for different focuses. And I don't know. Now I'm just ranting.
No, I don't agree. I think you're actually making a good point. And look, for somebody that's in their late 20s like Jerry, that's probably just now trying to get a handle around this thing.
Sure.
But you got to start making some choices, guy.
Yeah, I mean,
this is. Look, all facetious aside, I think I've said this for so long. It's funny because I feel like a broken record, but it really is true. The cybersecurity industry is still immature.
Yeah.
Weird as that is to say, it is still immature. It's still growing and it's still evolving. And if we were having this conversation in 10 or 15 years, I don't think we would be talking about this the same way, because I think it would have sort of this, I think categorically, we're going to see conferences that are more thematically focused, right? You're going to see a conference that's solely about, God help me, AI, right? And insecurity. Or you're going to see one that's solely about, like detection engineering. Or you're going to see one that's specifically on cloud security. It's already happening. It's not just these big generic free-for-alls where it's like, submit a talk. Everybody's got to have a talk. Like, can you even be considered a security professional if you haven't given a talk? That's craziness. It's ridiculous. And I think it's candidly it's a hallmark of the immaturity of the industry. That's a big theme for this conversation, really. The industry is still trying to figure out where it fits. It's happening. Look, this is like back to the originating point, which got this started, which was Andy, you talking smack about me not wanting to give talks anymore because, just be honest, I don't like to do things that people don't pay me for. Is that bad to say? Is it okay to say that? Okay, cool.
That is
good
a
to say
super
that.
fair point.
Okay, so
fair.
I don't love free action.
Right.
I like mentoring and I like doing things that are like on that level. But I'm not going to do a ton of work unless I have something super, super, super important to say, unless you pay me for it. It's just like, I'm sorry, this long into the industry, this is work. This is a job. It's okay to say that. Cool. Okay. It's my passion too, but it's a passion that pays. And so I'm glad for this. It's like a good thing for everybody, but I'm not going to go just on the struggle bus of creating talks just to do it. That's marketing. kind of over that. So, there's that piece of it. But back,
I kind of don't
back.
blame you.
No,
Yeah.
well, it's just it's time management. I don't have enough
Yeah.
time. I got plenty of paying work. Keeps me pretty active and pretty busy, and hopefully everybody else does too. But kind of looking back to it, it's like, okay, again, the other point back to the part, early part of this get together that we've got is like, what drives you? What's going on? I am completely enthralled by some of the things that are happening out there in the technology landscape, and also just in the cybersecurity landscape. I mean, we could easily take this into 10 different places. It's like, look, the whole AI thing is stupid because you have vendors just shoving AI down your throat, but it's real. It's not going anywhere. It's a legit thing that's happening. I got a pretty cool anecdote on that in a minute. Number two, it's insurance. It's the elevation of cybersecurity into the C-level. That's happening. That's really happening now for good reason. And that's exciting to see. These are real, like, table stakes for the world. I mean, you got election security, you got, deep fakes that are like, manipulating people and their opinions on everything. Like, there's stuff that's happening out there in the realm of cybersecurity that how could you not be crazy excited about the opportunities for us to potentially do something good for the world? Doesn't mean it's getting easier, but
Right.
I think it's certainly getting more interesting. I really do.
Well, those are all like huge topics, and I'd love to explore them a little.
I know.
So obviously, you're doing a lot of freelance work, which is great, and you kind of get to pick and choose the projects you're working on. And what do you see that's, especially over 20 years, like what do you see evolving, and what's lately? I know I'm asking all the questions, so Jerry, at some point I'll let you ask a question, but not today.
Yeah. Why don't you just back off, Jerry?
Yeah.
28-year-old junior pen tester, Jerry. So anyway, I don't know why we're giving you a hard time today, Jerry. You don't deserve this today, actually, right? But like I'll just take a sip of my beverage. It's fine. It's definitely not alcoholic.
Sure.
But so look, here it is. I've been having some of the most interesting projects of my entire career in the past 12 months. Not even kidding. Like maybe that's what gets me pretty fired up. I'm having a blast working with clients, and some of it's funny because some of it's really interesting, kind of progressive stuff, because it's like deep fake recognition. How do you incorporate deep fakes into like security awareness training? What makes a deep fake interesting? What does it look like from a social engineering perspective? I do a lot of social engineering work. So I look at this and go, okay, now you're talking about some really cool stuff. Like, this is really interesting. And there's things to back that up. It's not just like, oh yeah, we're smart people and we think it's interesting. Somebody handed $25 million to a scammer because they created a bunch of fake people on Zoom that looked like the CFO and the whole team on the finance team. And it's like, okay, that's real. Like, okay, that's really cool stuff. It's terrible, yet cool, for us in the cybersecurity industry. So I do a lot of that work, but let me tell you an area that is so intensely boring, yet rewarding.
Perfect.
No, because this is the stuff that gets me fired up. Look, I am that person. Any of you that know me, I mean, yeah, I know, Andy, you know me pretty well. Jerry, you know me by proxy. I am the person that if we were at a cocktail party with cybersecurity people, I would absolutely be talking your ear off about configuration management until you got bored and left. And I know when that moment happens, I see the glaze come over you, but I'm excited about this stuff. I love this stuff. I want to talk about it. This is sort of the same vibe. I have done a bunch of projects in the past, let's call it 18 months. It's a little bit more than 12. And it's totally driven by ransomware, blah, blah, ransomware, blah, blah. Business continuity and prioritization around data and data recovery and application recovery that people haven't spent enough time on in the last 20 years. And you talk about risk. Look, every single one of us, irrespective of our job titles, we're all in risk management. Every one of us is in risk management somehow. I get fired up about this because I'm like, so you really haven't sat down in a Fortune 100 and broken down the tier 0, tier 1, tier 2 apps and the criticality of those and the recovery of those and the dependencies on those. And so many organizations have to sheepishly look around and go, no, not as much as we should have. People are doing it. I've done a ton of work around, and it's been so rewarding because people walk away and they go, oh my gosh, we have a pretty good sense of what to do now. If things hit the fan, and they're getting fan all over the place, it's fun. It's fun to have those conversations and get the stakeholders in the room. And look, I'll tell you, I did a ransomware tabletop last year. First time in my whole career, 25 years in this industry, right? First time in my whole career, publicly traded company, CEO was in the room.
Nice.
CEO. And I was like, we don't normally get CEOs in the room for tabletop exercises. And he was dead serious. And I can't give a lot away here, obviously, without disclosing things, but it's a company that does groceries and logistics. And, and basically the CEO said, look, the nuances of our business, if our point of sale infrastructure gets hit and our logistics infrastructure gets hit with ransomware in such a way that we are unable to perform food deliveries to military commissaries, they do work with the military, we get called before Congress. And it was like, you start to see these sort of secondary and tertiary and these things that, they're not on the surface. You don't look at these companies and go, okay, you're a company that sells groceries. Yeah, but you also do massive scale food delivery for the U.S. military. And if you don't deliver stuff in a contract, that's a breach of things beyond just a normal business relationship. And it was just a fascinating moment for me because I went, look, after all these years, I'm still learning stuff. I'm like still figuring out that the risks and the parameters around that, they're vastly beyond what I always see on the surface. And I think a lot of us do. We're starting to realize that. Cool.
When you're doing like this, kind of DR planning or business continuity planning, and you're getting these guys to define tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, do they have trouble with like everything's a priority and like they really have trouble stack ranking, or are they pretty good about, kind of really figuring out what the crown jewels are?
Well, as any good consultant would say, Andy, it depends. But no, I would say the majority actually fall in the good camp. If you get the right people in the room, what they realize is like, look, nothing works unless X works. And look, it's the classic stuff. It's like, okay, Active Directory is broken, everything's broken. DNS is broken, everything's broken. Right? A lot of times, which sadly today, we don't need to go down this rabbit hole, but VMware is broken, everything's broken. Right? Like, so there's those fundamentals, but what's fun is when you go one level up from that. Which is like, okay, so SAP is having a bad day. What's breaking that? And all of a sudden, everybody goes like, so, like what depends on or Oracle, like God help you, or some of those things, like Power, AD, DNS, DHCP, like these 4 things, everybody goes, yeah, check. But you start moving up one level from that, that's where it gets fun. And sometimes you'll get wildly differing opinions, but a lot of times what you'll get is the first conversation they've ever had around it. And it's really fascinating to have them sit in a room, them, the collective them. I'm just the consultant that gets to nod, judge from afar or whatever. But you get the people that have to deal with this stuff and they look at one another and like, what would we do? Like, is that Bob that's going to do that recovery, or like who's is it, like, it's fascinating. And it's the stuff we should have been talking about forever ago that we're really getting around to now.
So what's changed? What's changed that has caused organizations to start paying attention to it?
Executive level attention, period. Look, you guys are long-term veterans of the industry. For anybody that's listening and hanging out here, how long have we all sort of railed against the concept of FUD? Like, don't use FUD, don't do FUD work. And now it's happening without us having to do it. It's everywhere. It's another executive that goes, hey, are you guys prepared? Hey, did your cyber insurer ask you this? And all of a sudden,
Mm.
the executives are starting to get it. It's sad that it's 2024, almost 2025. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
We're really starting to see that, but it's happening on its own. Because look, when the executives get it, when anybody with a C at the beginning of their title comes to you and says, "Hey, we're worried about this. Do we have a plan for this?" That's when our industry really starts to take off, and all the work we've put in over all these years starts to really manifest. That's how I see it.
How much of that do you think is directly as a result of ransomware?
I think it's about 90%.
Yeah.
No hesitation at all. In fact, the way I describe ransomware, and I have two ways of describing ransomware. I'm like, look, it's more sophisticated now than it used to be, but it's the equivalent of getting mugged in an alley. It's the cyber mugged in the alley. Somebody just hit you over the head and took your wallet, or took your purse. With some of the extortion stuff and the other things going on, it's a little beyond that now, but that's one piece. The other piece is the silver lining of ransomware. Everybody's getting hit. It's an equal opportunity attack vector. And so everybody can talk to it. Nobody wants to be the ransomware victim. And even people in the same industry that are competitors on the day-to-day basis have sympathy and empathy for one another, where they're like, we don't want to be you. We got to start talking about this stuff. So I think if nothing else, that's the gift that ransomware has brought our industry. Is it's an awareness, and it's an awareness that has elevated up into the upper echelons of management and executive leadership. That, I mean, look, you can rage against the machine. Like, look, privilege management is important, damn it. But good luck selling that to the board.
Right.
When all your systems get hijacked and you got somebody over in Russia or wherever trying to, get you to send some Bitcoin, that's a whole different situation. Totally different.
Yeah, I would agree. I do think ransomware, I think some of the stigma of getting hit has gone away because so many people have.
No,
And
there is no stigma. It could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
It's that prevalent. Which is also insane. It's a unifier. It's an equalizer in a lot of ways. Anybody is susceptible to this. You don't have to be perfect at security. You don't even have to be great or decent at security. Anybody can get hit. It's that.
But does that lead to people just giving up? Like, there's nothing we can do to minimize our chances?
Nah,
we're just going to get nailed?
Nah, no way. Not at all. I think in a lot of ways, it's actually fortified the industry in a way to say, look, what are the table stakes stuff we got to do and the controls we got to have? And, there's frameworks. I love and hate frameworks. The MITREs and the NIST and these. But at the same time, it's a common language that we can all start to use to talk about things. And we're talking about things more than we ever have. I mean, look, again, 20 years ago, both of you, 20 years ago, remember how hesitant the cybersecurity community was to talk about anything? Like, you didn't want to share. You didn't want to tell anybody about what was going on. Wherever it doesn't help us. It's like, let's move past that. Let's share things that work. Share things that don't work. All this stuff is finally starting to coalesce into, I think, a better intelligence community collaboratively that we've needed forever. So, look, it sucks in the moment. But I think the ramifications of things like ransomware actors and these much more sophisticated ransomware actors that might be state-driven, it's going to be that we're getting better. I think and I think we'll get better quicker than we have.
Yeah. Hell, 20 years ago, Jerry still had hair.
I did not. So good for you, Jerry.
Long time ago.
It was a little longer than that, but
all right,
okay.
That's fair. All right. Last question for me, and then I'll let Jerry chime in here. Where do you fall in the paying the ransom and the extortion debate?
So this is such a tough question, and you knew this when you asked it, Andy. Because it's nuanced, man. It is.
Yeah, it is.
On the one hand, it's very easy to shake the fist and be like, no way, we're not paying criminals. This is all business at the end of the day. Cybersecurity serves business. I think some of the recent government regulations and things around payment to, say, like terrorist groups and such, that's changing it. Because look, if you as an organization are immediately about to be in violation of the U.S. government on paying like known criminal or known terrorist group, you kind of can't do that, and that's making it a little bit more tricky. But my general landing spot on this one is it's business. And smart businesses look at this and go, okay, we're held for ransom. Our recovery projection is 2 days. Because the reality of everybody thinking that they're going to be able to take their data and get back to recovery is so hilariously overblown. That's a whole different conversation. But like, okay, let's be realistic. It's 2 days. We're losing $1 million an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go on ahead and get out of this. Look, I don't blame executives for making the decision to pay the ransom and get out of the thing. Like, look, imagine, if you had a kid and they were being held for ransom by some, Mexican cartel, and they said, give us $3 million and you can afford it. Let's just assume you can afford it. And you'll have your kid back in, 12 hours. Pay it.
Do I like the kid?
There's a huge dependency on whether or not the kid is someone in your favor. So yes, obviously, but it's like, do you do that? I think that the emotional response for any parent would be like, of course I do. If I can afford it. If Bruce Wayne's parents could get Bruce back from Mexico where he decided to go surfing with his friends, they're like, done. Yeah, here you go. Give Bruce back. We're moving on. I think a lot of businesses would look at this and say, look, if we can minimize the impact to consumers and customers and partners and potentially avoid okay, let me take one step back and let me give an example.
Sure.
Because I think it's relevant. I think it was last year. It's getting fuzzy in these years, but I think it was 2023. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but it was the difference between Caesars and MGM getting hit with ransom. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, remember those? Which one absolutely ate it, and which one got back in business pretty quick?
Oh, yeah. I think, was it Caesars got back pretty quick? Oh, man. Like you said, it gets fuzzy.
Well, we all remember MGM, and I think the point is we don't remember Caesars.
Caesars paid, and it went boom. MGM was advertising for a Linux admin for $150 an hour for the most nightmarish job on the planet that we all laughed about because we realized that every single one of their systems was hijacked still. And they had to completely reformat them. And the total cost, it's estimates and things, we're flying by, the hair here. But like, I think it was like 10 million for Caesars. I'm, again, trying to remember this. And it was 100 million for MGM, and they still had more problems because they fought it. And so it's like, look, I think you've got to be pragmatic on this deal. The day will come where this is no longer like a reasonable conversation, but it's not today.
Yep.
It's not.
Yeah.
I think you got to be honest.
And my one piece of unsolicited advice is for most businesses, have this conversation where you're not in the crisis. Try to do it when you can be calm and non-emotional and pragmatic about it.
Yeah.
And game it out.
It's tough not to get emotional about this one, though.
Yeah. Jerry, I'm completely dominating the conversation here with Dave, so please.
See you, sir. Hang out. I'm enjoying it.
So what do you see in your experience? What do you see are the main contributing factors to people getting hit by ransomware these days? And how have you seen that changing over time? You mentioned
what, that was a terrible question. Never mind, Jerry. You don't get to ask questions.
I can answer it pretty succinctly, actually.
I'm
teasing. Because the sad truth, and this is like, you kids get off my lawn moment, it's the same stuff. Same old stuff. It's lack of inventory. It's lack of hygiene. Like you don't have consistent configuration practices, patch practices. You have things exposed to the internet that have absolutely no business being exposed to the internet. Being a big virtualization guy, and he mentioned this right at the beginning, right? I always used to laugh with my classes at SANS, and I'd be like, all right, we're doing a real world experiment. I'm going to pull up Shodan, and I'm going to go do a search on VMware's administrative console exposed to the internet and see where it is. And it's astonishing how many people have that stuff on the internet. Doesn't ever need to be on the internet. And you start realizing like that people just don't have smart practices. around this stuff. And it's not even just that. It's like, there's IoT. There's all these things that are progressively making it more difficult, not less, to get a handle on what we have, what shape it's in, and how exposed it is. And that's still the problem. I mean, I think it's going to consistently be the problem. What's funny is, because I've been such a big cloud person for years, anybody that knows me knows this, cloud's made it worse.
Yeah. 10 times worse.
Cloud
I would say it's 10.
solved the problem. It's made it absolutely worse.
Just to soapbox for a second there, I think it's because so many people who are building in cloud, comparing to an old brick and mortar data center, there was always this monolithic firewall that you had to go through, and you had to go to security. And there was this check and balance of like, what are you doing? Why are you opening us to the internet? What do you need? And now it's like anybody can spin up anything in the cloud, and that concept just died. And it's open first, and then like, just have a nice day. And boy, is that attack surface management becoming a bigger and bigger part of my job.
It is. Look, you can clickety-click your way to glory in about 4 seconds in the cloud. Yeah. Whereas you used to have to go through like a change review board, and there was a blinking thing in a rack that you had to accommodate the system owners. No. You can just go into a console or through an API or a CLI and just go clickety-click, done. And then a thing now exists. And who knows what its exposure level is. So it's like, yeah, it's a big problem. And I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. People are starting to get it, but it's like, I don't think it helps the situation. The attackers have figured that out.
Yeah.
Let's leave that there. The attackers are not stupid. They know the cloud is it's a quagmire. It's a swamp. It may be nice,
I
right?
I feel this very deeply.
Yeah, and look, I'm an optimist. Let's remember, right? I'm an optimist because I'm like, look, it's going to be great. But until it's great, it's going to be a swamp. So, just get ready. And it's funny. I have a couple organizations I work with that are still, they're not quite at the dipping the toe in the water. They're a little further along than that, but they're not huge cloud. Yeah, like they're mostly still on-prem, and they're kind of making their way into cloud, and they're already starting to realize that. They're like, wow, you give them a little bit, they take a lot. Some of the dev teams and some of the tech teams that are involved in this, and they're like, we can have a big data lake in an hour. And I'm like, but is that what you need right now in your life? And who's going to protect it, and who understands it? And it's like, technology is just, I call it, running fast with scissors in the dark next to a cliff. That's where we're at. Have fun. Boy, that's not a very positive note to leave on.
Sorry. So what do you see? Look, I don't know if you may not know. I was the CISO for a cloud, not a large one, but for a cloud provider, and so I saw the other side, and it was my infrastructure, and it was also the infrastructure that I had to protect, and so I certainly have lots of strong and deep feelings about cloud. But what I'm curious about, you said you're very passionate about configuration management and its relevance to, different aspects of security. Well, do you see cloud like enabling or being a detractor to that?
Jerry, I know exactly where you were, and this was all me baiting you to finally get you to come out and be honest. So okay. I'm glad that we're finally here now. We can talk openly.
This is an intervention, isn't it?
No, yeah,
it really is.
Yeah, what nobody else can see is the whole group behind us that are like, "Hi, Jerry." So, okay. So in any case, no. So a friend of mine, both of you may know this individual, but his name's Anton Shuvakin. Great guy. I've known him for years, right? Smart dude. And he works in the office of the, CSO or CISO over at Google. And, and we're just friends. We just, casually talk all the time. And I did a SANS project with them, within the past year. And he converted me to something that I hadn't thought about. And I love when people completely reframe my thinking, because it's so easy to get tunnel vision, right? Thinking about this stuff. But he really converted me to this whole notion of something called the shared fate. versus the shared responsibility, because it forced me to sort of flip my arguably consumer-centric mindset around a bit and say, hey, look, I'm always on the side of the people using cloud, but what about the cloud people? The ones that are running this stuff and the responsibilities they have and the challenges that they have. Can they patch everything on a dime? Can they make those changes without having massive disruption? These are huge issues. These are scale issues. These are things that are beyond, frankly, what mere mortals typically can even accommodate, even in large organizations, and do so quickly. So back to your question, which is around configuration management, I look at this and say, could you make one small change that could arguably increase the security and reduce the risk posture in a cloud environment quickly? But what's the impact to the consumer in order to do so? You have different things to take into account. I feel that. I think that the dependency factor is much more so than we've ever realized. I think organizations using cloud have to start looking at dependencies in a different way and saying, look, if our standard requirement for a provider or partner or provider partner to make a change that's going to help improve our security is X, in a cloud environment, it might be Y. Right? It might be different because of the scale that it's at. And I think there needs to be some acknowledgement of that. I think there needs to be some recognizance of that. And they're not today. Candidly, there's just a lot of people yelling and screaming into the void because they're like, oh, the cloud providers aren't being transparent. They give me this BS SOC report or ISO report or whatever it is that is checking boxes. But what's the reality behind that? I think, so maybe to get to the heart of the question, it's third-party risk. And I think we need to start being a hell of a lot more honest about third-party risk when it comes to that level of dependency. And I don't think we're there yet. I think there's massively unrealistic expectations as to what that entails when you're talking about a scalable implementation. Like flipping one bit sounds so simple, but if it's you, cool. If it's 1 million customers, I think you can do that quickly. And I think we just need to start being more honest about it. I don't think it absolves the providers of risk. And look, there's no better example of that than the Microsoft action this year. I mean, Microsoft's gotten owned, and they've had to come out and be like, we've been owned. Frankly, I applaud them for at least being pretty honest about it and saying, look, mistakes were made. We've had to sort of scramble on our side. And this is a company that big with that level of resources. Any provider can have that issue. I mean, Amazon just had a breach of their employees' data. It's a little different, but it's like, look, it's only a matter of time. Every cloud provider on the planet is a huge target, a bullseye. And it's going to happen more and more. I think we need to start being more honest about it. I think, frankly, the conversation should be more about compartmentalization, isolation, how you're keeping me separate from everybody else, how you're keeping me separate from you on the back end underlying the fabric versus, are you doing everything perfectly? Yes, no, maybe. I need to know that you're keeping me in my own little bubble, right? To where I'm more in control of my own stuff and anything coming from behind the curtain is less likely to influence me. And we're not there yet. We're still not there after all these years. Fascinating question, actually. And it's a tough one to answer sort of unilaterally, but wow.
Yeah.
It's just getting weirder. It is.
Yeah. It's a difficult situation. Like I said, I had a unique vantage point on that topic, and I think that there's perhaps a reckoning that is yet to come. Certainly, I think most organizations are feeling the impacts of like the ever increasing cost of cloud, and so you're actually starting to see some companies, backing off of cloud. But what you just described is objectively correct. So you can't argue with that. But at the same time, I think it's kind of antithetical to some of the fundamental concepts of cloud, like the economies of scale and whatnot. And so in order to do that, I fear that what we're going to see is, continued spiraling costs, which are going to then again make it even less attractive.
Well,
So
I think you're right.
I used to think, 10 years ago that over some timeline, we would see IT, like corporate IT be more like voicemail and phone systems. Like you just don't have them in your, like you like who has a voicemail system, in their office, and who has a phone system anymore? Like you just don't do that. It's really not done. Those are all up in the cloud. And I'm not so sure about that anymore.
So look, you're not sure about voicemail systems, Jerry?
No.
Man, you
I'm
were
not
out of
sure
touch,
about
guy. You need to
I'm
get
not
with it. So
I'm not so sure about IT being, the end destination for IT being in the cloud, I guess is
it's
my point.
not. And, actually back to the point, maybe I like wandered off the path there, but the whole concept of the shared fate, I think I should have been a little more direct. The vast majority of cloud security problems are not the cloud provider. It's us being stupid and
Oh, yeah.
screwing it up.
Trust me,
Yeah, no, I
I
know you
can't tell
know.
you, I can't
Right.
tell you how many times I met with customers
You're like,
who deleted their or got ransomwared and wanted to know, what we did wrong that allowed that to happen. And the honest answer was we didn't. They misunderstood what they were responsible for. And so
so
when I
did
when
you
I
have
first
multi-factor? Did you have multi? Yeah.
Multi what?
hatching and port, so like, these are customers that have like, old non-auto updating WordPress installs, and there's lots of reasons why it happened. But when I first heard obviously I was a big evangelist of the shared responsibility model, because that's kind of like basic block and tackling of cloud. But when I heard about the shared fate model, like, for me, a light went on. I thought that was a really great way of phrasing it, because I think it captures this kind of two-way finger pointing that happens in the cloud that I don't know that a lot of us recognize happens. And the reality is, even if in instances where a customer screws up badly, if they screw up bad enough, it splashes on the cloud provider too. I mean, look at what happened with Citibank. Was it Citibank or Capital? No, it was Capital One and
Yeah, one.
AWS about 5 or 6 years ago, right? Like that was all them. But AWS, their name was kind of dragged through the mud too.
Yeah.
So,
So
and we're seeing it with Microsoft and CrowdStrike.
yeah. So look, I'll give you a great anecdote here, and I know we're getting close to the end of our incredible time together. Which, by the way, this has been way more fun than it should have been, especially given that I'm hanging out with you guys. But look, so I was at a conference, a riveting conference, I may add, years ago around identity and access management. I mean, think of the
Good time.
fun that you could have, right? So you're like, I'm
Mhm.
going to an IAM conference. Yeah. And this was right about the rise of like the SSO and the federation space. Like, remember when that was like new and exciting? Now it's table
Oh, yeah.
stakes, but like, remember when that was like super new? So I went to this
Mhm.
conference and there was somebody from Cap One and it was part of their IAM team. And I can't remember who it was, and it doesn't frankly matter. We were having a hallway conversation. And this gentleman said to me, he goes, look, you think of Cap One as a bank, like a financial institution. He goes, you're wrong. We're a software company pretending to be a financial institution. And I went like, okay, that's interesting. Kind of shelved it. It's not. They're a technology company and they're very savvy on cloud. And I met a bunch more people over the years from that organization that were, I mean, frankly, some of the most knowledgeable people about cloud that I've ever met. And, you talk about people that know AWS, these people know AWS. And so when that happened to them, because I hate throwing stones because we're all in this game together, I heard about this with those guys and I went, if it can happen to them, it could happen to anybody. Seriously, because they knew what they were doing. Those guys really had, like, they had a clue. They're not idiots. They have a huge team. They have a really sophisticated technology group that knows cloud. And I look back at this and go, so yes, it opened up a lot of people's eyes about some of the nuances of AWS. maybe we didn't realize. But it also made people go, hey, wait a minute. Even the most sophisticated organizations out there can have these problems because cloud moves fast. There's a lot of, nuts and bolts and just pieces and parts. And it's like, does anybody have a full inventory of all the APIs they got? Do we even want to go there at the end of this hangout that we got going? We don't. But it's like, no. It's the technology landscape it's moving so fast. And it's getting so much more complicated that I think I look at the young people getting into this industry and I feel for them because you're going to be running fast. I had a conversation with a CISO. I'll give you a last anecdote here, right? CISO I've known for 20 plus years, like a friend at this point. And we were talking about maybe 8 months ago. It's probably about 8 months ago. And he's getting ready to retire. Yeah, so he's in his early 60s and great dude, great experience, been around, he's seen it all, kind of guy. And we were on this on this call and he's just like, Dave, I'm getting out. And I'm like, yeah, good for you. I'm happy for you, like go get on your boat or whatever. And he goes, no, I'm so happy I'm getting out because of AI.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I was
so
just
tell
going to
me
say
about
that.
Tell me about that. And he goes, we're going to lose control of this thing. Like today we're talking about it and we still feel like we have a little bit of the narrative under control and security. 30 years from now, it's not going to be that way. It's going to have vastly gone past us and we're going to be running like crazy to even try to keep up with it. And like total candor, the guy said, I'm glad I'm getting out before that. And
man, that resonates so much. Yeah.
Hit me. And I was like,
I feel that.
That's depressing
I
as hell.
I felt it too. I felt that absolutely.
I already feel like AI is getting the way I talked about it recently internally was we can in security throw up all the red flags we want, but every single business person in our company is seeing every competitor embrace AI, and they feel it's existential, whether they like it or not, whether it makes sense or not, that they have to do it too. And there's no way we're going to stop that train. No. So you can either stand in front of it and get squashed and no longer have any influence or ability to help, or you just buckle up, put your big boy pants on, and try to mitigate the damage. But it is absolutely going fast.
What we
faster
need
than I think
is the Venn diagram of AI and ransomware to converge so that we get the narrative back, my friends.
Yeah. And to be fair, that's okay if business is making that call. What I want them to understand is the risk that they are taking on, which I don't think they understand.
No. But I also think a lot of IT people, and in particular security people, have this, I think, wrong-headed view of AI, and they're equating it more to like blockchain. It's a passing fad. Just keep your head down, and people will realize what a stupid idea it is. And I really don't think that these people are looking around and seeing that it's already everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
At least in the marketing.
Well, I mean, it's in every one of your web browsers and your email clients, and it's in your phone now. And, and you've got companies selling AI ops and, to automate IT. And I mean, it is diffusing into everything. And so I agree with your friend. Like that scared the crap out of me. The other thing that scared the crap out of me was personal liability for CISOs, but that's a whole other story.
Do we even want to go? Look, so I will give a plug here at the end since we're talking AI. But I don't know if anybody's a fan of some of the writings of a gentleman named Yuval Noah Harari. Probably he's pretty famous for writing *Sapiens* and *Homo Deus* and these other big brain books. But he just wrote one called *Nexus*. And so just prior to Nexus, which I mean, just honestly just got released, but just just before the pandemic, he released this one called 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And he was sort of foreshadowing this. And he was talking about AI and some of these things. And he's like, look, it's not going anywhere. And what you're going to start seeing is this massive increase of technology that becomes more trusted than human beings. Right. And, he gives some very banal examples of like, Google Maps. Ignore Google Maps. It says go right, you go left. You get stuck in traffic, you miss the meeting. You're like, damn it. You do it again, same thing. You trust it the next time you get to the meeting, you start to trust it. And eventually you get to the point where you can't do anything without. And so there's like all these really interesting examples where AI is just to the point. It's in your phone, it's in your browser, it's everywhere that we're dealing with things. And it's moving so fast that I think we have to start looking at big picture stuff. And it's not just cybersecurity, it's societal issues, right? It's like all these huge things that we should be weighing in on. It's interesting stuff, right? To the gentleman's point, that I was speaking with, I don't blame him for wanting to get out. But it made me, it hit me real hard that he said that so directly. He's like, I'm glad I don't have to wrangle it. I feel for CISOs and cybersecurity teams that are like, they're going to be on the front lines of having to deal with this stuff in their organizations, whether they like it or not. And I think we're getting there quick.
It's true. Well, we've taken a lot of your time, and I want to be respectful of that.
It's all good. This was super
been
fun.
A great, yeah, this was great, man. If people wanted to find you or find out more about you, how can they?
I'm so easy to find. I'm on the thing formerly.
So sometimes the technology gods are not smiling upon us.
That's true. And right as we were wrapping up, we lost Dave.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully he's not like lost. Like we don't have to send out the search dogs to find him. But
I think we were having such an amazing and insightful conversation that the NSA said, that's enough, you're done. No more.
That's true. We were having, it was just too awesome. It crossed that threshold where
it could be.
We couldn't. Yeah, that's probably what it was. So anyway, that's unfortunate. Yeah. I will, we'll certainly include a link to Dave's
all
LinkedIn and all of his stuff. That'll be in the show notes.
I don't know where we dropped, but he was saying the best place to find him is on X and Blue Sky under Dave Shackelford. I think just at Shack, and on LinkedIn where he's most prevalent. And you can also Google for Voodoo Security, and you'll find his consulting company.
Yeah,
and we appreciate it.
You can also Google Dave Shackelford, and you'll find all sorts of stuff about him. So
mostly
awesome guest. Thank you for lining him up. That was great.
Indeed. So hey, thanks for listening, watching the show. If you like it, tell a friend. This is a new format. It's a new feed. It's a new everything. And frankly, we're trying to build the listenership. So if it was good and you find it valuable, tell a friend. We are eventually going to try to get some sponsors to cover our costs and make a little beer money. So viewership matters. And
that's right.
We need more than 7 people.
That's right. All right. You can find the actual show notes, links to the audio and video recordings on our website at gettingdefensive.com. And you can follow me on Mastodon at jerry@infosec.exchange. And where can they find you?
Also on InfoSec Exchange at Lurg on Mastodon, and also on X at Lurg. And we've also got a new YouTube channel. So we've been using my old YouTube channel for stuff. We're converting over to a new one. We'll publish that. I don't have it handy. It's the Defensive Security channel, I think. We'll get it out there.
We'll put the link in. Yeah.
But so there's videos of these now. If you're curious about seeing what we look like and what our guests look like, you can go there. And eventually when we, have 5,000 million followers, we get $1 from YouTube.
That's right.
So anyway.
It's going to be great. It's going to be a great day.
So we will say thank you for listening. Sorry for the technical issue. And we'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.